So yeah, I guess the key point I wanted to mention from here also why carbon markets will be important even beyond 2050 is because carbon is an essential element of our lives. You know, we actually, when we breathe in, we get oxygen and we get out, as you know, CO2. So it is impossible to get rid completely of this. But what we are aiming for as a society is to get net zero, or even, you know, the other way around, start to ingesting and getting more carbon stored. So to extract now carbon, all that carbon that has already been put into the atmosphere. And for that reason, I think there is still a lot of work that will be taking place over the next, you know, 25 years on this topic alone. And well, guess what? I believe blockchains, you know, DLT has a lot to play in this. As a currency, in fact, you know, I think we may get, or one of my views is that at some point in the future, we may all have our own carbon wallet. Hey, how much was your personal emissions? How much, you know, did you store? And at the moment, obviously, that's nowhere really to be seen. Although now we can see in many places when we go online or even shop that, oh, if you want, you can offset the emissions to planting trees. That gives you an idea of what that future could look like. And I believe it's just going to grow as time progresses. But exactly, in order to prevent greenwashing and in order to prevent certain organizations literally just getting money from, you know, us, you know, when we do something and I want to reduce my emissions, how can I do it? And giving money away without being clear where it's going. This is where blockchain has a lot of potential to start supporting these type of ideas that are just picking up everywhere. I am working, as I mentioned, as part of ISO. I'm engaged in IEEE. If you are technologists, you probably don't need introduction with IEEE. They are working specifically on that standard that you see there on the left, standard for using blockchain for carbon trading applications. And yeah, it's one of the areas I'm focusing on because I can see, especially with Article 6 moving forward after COP26, this is going to get more and more traction over the next few years. And so in other words, you know, carbon is money now. That's one topic. The other topic I wanted to cover is related to fixed income, bonds and loans. The fixed income market is huge. I mean, if you come from finance, you probably will know, you know, that some of the figures, for example, the year worldwide bond market, it's almost it's over $90 trillion. That involves obviously all forms. And so, you know, when you consider 90 trillions, and here in this graph, you can see that it's been growing from 1 billion, hopefully to reach the 1 trillion mark next year. You can see that this is not much to ask. You can see the trends there as well. You know, there's a market that continues to grow year on year, especially now with more and more regulations coming along. There is only one way for this market to go. And you know, based on other estimates that I've been working on, you know, from OECD as well as UN, we need at least around 5 to 6 trillion US dollars per year in investment to, you know, if we are to meet the targets of below 2 degrees. So yeah, it is, again, one of those areas that it's getting its traction on its own, really big. And now, what can we do? How can we make it better? Well, here again, blockchain, I believe, has something to add. What you see here on the right, it was extracted from a report from HSBC. You have the links here, by the way, you know, if you want to check any of these figures, where they are coming from. What we have here on this table is a comparison between a standard green bond process, okay, this one in the middle, and a potential fully automated blockchain green bond. These specific figures are assuming a nominal bond of $100 million. So if we actually look at that and we say, okay, if someone is actually trying to raise a bond, $100 million, they will need to pay as you can see from that figure, over 6 million, over 6% on cost, transaction costs of many types. Now, we actually leverage all the potentials of these automations, that, and not just blockchain. As you can see here, there is IoT, for example, linked to this, as well as some other technologies. You could reduce that by, 90%, to less than 1 million. So obviously, this, by the way, does not just have the potential of reduced current cost. Once that you do this and you introduce automation, you have the potential to scale the whole thing, to actually even offer blockchain green loans, for example, which is something, again, that is still starting, and we can track all these green credentials of these financial products. Just to finish, this is an area that I've been working on for the past few years. It is one of the things I'm really active in ISO as well. This actually, for example, this diagram here on the left is some of the things that we've been defining. How exactly blockchain or green bonds could actually work. You can see the complexity in that diagram, by the way, all the potential intermediaries, all the potential types of organizations that need to be involved for something like this to really be scaled. I have to say, no, this doesn't mean that we haven't seen blockchain green bonds in the market. I mean, last year, for example, the European Investment Bank issued their first blockchain green bond on the Ethereum blockchain. But it's good to mention, that these are not the proper bonds. In the sense, what they are doing is typically tokenizing it, after being issued, following traditional means. And therefore, because they are not really leveraging all these automation advantages, they are not really getting to the point of where we want to get. So it's a long road away ahead. Just to let you know that, well, I've been working this. This is a project that, for example, I'm leading in multiple fronts. I'm a big believer of open collaboration, open source. And but yeah, we actually last year were part of a competition from the G20 tech sprint, which involved the Bank for International Settlements. Baiz is one of the biggest organizations when it comes to finance. They are sometimes referred as the bank of the central banks. And, being recognized in this competition and being shortlisted as one of the key projects was really good. And well, it's bringing more momentum to what we're trying to do. So this is, by the way, if anyone wants to volunteer in this type of activities, get in touch. This is, as I say, I'm working voluntarily in this topic across several organizations. I think that will be it. I'm happy to open the room to questions.
Yep. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand, as in, yeah, use the reaction menu, or if you don't know how to use a reaction menu, just unmute yourself and ask your question. While we're waiting for people to be brave enough to ask a question, I'll ask the first question. You mentioned volunteers. Pedro, what skill sets would a volunteer need to get involved?
Excellent question. Well, this is something I'm currently working on as well to, as you can see, I'm involved in multiple organizations. So I'm probably stepping out a bit from Blockchain Climate Institute, the NGO, to because heading the entire division is quite a lot of time. So I will be putting more and more time in ISO and be less time in BCI. But I still want to keep engaged specifically in this area, because there are many projects going on in BCI. So in my specific case, for this type of projects, so I'm looking for people that doesn't need to be an expert in blockchain at all, but they need to have experience, for example, in finance, fixed income, for example, looking a lot, people who knows, for example, how bonds are issued, loans. We actually, at the moment, I'm working as part of PCI. We got support from a big bank. I cannot mention which one is, and that project is very focused on peer-to-peer lending, for example. And the reason why we kind of scale down is because peer-to-peer lending, we can see it being implemented way faster than a full bond. Bond requires too many people, as you can see there in that table, too many approvals, regulatory approvals. But peer-to-peer lending, it's way easier in terms of regulations, but still the core technology is there to move then later to a more regulated even bond market. This is all fixed income, by the way. So yeah, we're looking for experts in finance. We're looking for experts, obviously, in technology, not just blockchain, but also if you're a traditional software developer, obviously we need many of those as well. And lastly, but not least, we need also domain experts on the specific economic area we're supporting. I didn't mention that here, but a lot of the projects I'm working on with this is very focused on real estate buildings. The reason is because when you start focusing in traditional finance or kind of all finance, the main data set that you were dealing with was all money. So, you know, you just needed a technologist that handled the tech and a finance guy, and then you were okay. Now, this requires a specific data and a specific knowledge from the economic area. If you are working in energy, it's not the same that if you're working in transport, or it's not the same if you're working in real estate. So we are also now requiring sector-specific expertise, you know, that they will know exactly, for example, what makes a building green. Neither the technologists nor the finance guy know this. So this is actually more domain specific. And that's why I'm also targeting specifically real estate for now. I mean, BCI also is working on a lot of projects related to agriculture and obviously energy. And well, transport is also important, but again, I need to focus. So I cannot covering all economic sectors. But at least, you know, as any of you know, TCFD highlight the most important economic sectors that will transform is energy, transport, materials and buildings, and agriculture.
All right. Julie, you have your hand raised. You have a question, Julie?
I do. Lovely, great slides, by the way. Thank you so much. What do you think is the biggest set of challenges, let's say the 5 challenges that you can see for this not working? What's the barriers for it actually not working?
Good. Well, I think number one, if I have to put it now after being working on this for a while, is the collaboration, lack of collaboration. And this is why, by the way, I'm engaging so much all of these non-for-profits and academia and so on, because it's all open, it's all about collaboration. And you kind of get it here, and anyone who follows cryptos and blockchains and so on will know that the value of any of these networks is proportional to the size of the network. So, and that is a big part of the problem, I think, that everybody say, oh no, it is my network. And they all want to, oh no, I own all the IP, I own all the network. Well, you know, if we're going to keep trying to work like that, I'm afraid it's going to be a slower route to applications. So no, I think one big part is the lack of proper collaboration in this. Well, that's why I'm really focused on and collaborate with so many organizations, just because of that. I'm kind of the main person in each of these organizations doing the work. So it's me with myself talking. But yeah, I'm trying to get more people into this. And yeah, it really, you know, we're kind of starting. No, this is a problem that these 2 fields are really, really new on their own. ESG finance, which I go actually into a lot of those meetings alone, where no technology is involved. There are lots of things happening there. And then when you go mixing with technology, oh my God, well, my ESG colleagues, they say that's too much, Pedro. I cannot do that. You know, I already have enough my full plate with just ESG finance. And that's the other probably challenge, that this is all too new. So number 1 is collaboration. Number 2, this is all too much too soon. And well, in terms of the third, I'll put, but as I say, I don't think it is a problem. I think number 3, 4, and 5 is just the fact that this is all too new. By the way, I don't mean there are challenges, there are risks, if you say about what are the problems, but we will know about all of them until we test, until we do some kind of pilots in sandboxes and so on. So I think this is what we need to be doing more to understand what really are the risks, what really are the blockers. As I told you, for example, just to give you one example, when we last year implemented this blockchain green bond platform, and again, it was submitted to this competition, we realized that there were a few challenges there, and we started to scale down and move from bonds into loans. As it is much less money, it is easier to set up a pilot for, giving loans of £2,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 than trying to issue a bond of 100 million. So that's one of the things that we discovered, last year as part of this project. So, okay, no, we need to scale down because otherwise, we will not move forward. And that's why, we are in kind of this peer-to-peer, very small amount of money, et cetera, et cetera. But again, you discover all these problems once you start doing it and you say, oops, we're going to be blocked here. So let's scale down, let's move, change stack. But that's so far what I can tell you.
Great, thank you. So I guess the other skill that you need from volunteers is to have to be open to experimenting, trial and error, learning as you go along.
Agree. Well, I sometimes take it for granted. The things, I come from academia, as mentioned before. I did PhD postdoc. I was a lecturer teaching, and I think a lot in R&D sense. And in industry, I've always been working in digital transformation programs, so it's always new. Everything I do is always new. But yes, you need to have that mentality that you will be working in something where we don't know everything, but that's the reason why we're working, to understand more.
Yeah, cool. So relating to that, there's a question on how to sign up as a volunteer.
Well, in BCI, you can follow we have our open roles in Reach. I think Reach is the website. Yes, it's a volunteer. I'm happy to share details later on. We have lots of volunteers there, and I'm not sure how many positions are open, but yes, I'm about to open a few positions specifically on this area of fixed income, bonds, loans for real estate specifically. Okay,
great stuff. There's a question on the chat. Paul, I see your hand up, but I'll come to you after I go through the order of these questions. Dorina asked if you could elaborate on which parts of the green bonds would be automated. I think it was in the previous slide.
Yes. Well, I suggest it is a complex process, and you can see here all the different steps that are required to issue a bond. You start with the structuring and pricing, legal review, whitelisting, internal review, and green classification. I mean, it is big. I think just on automation alone, on settlement, for example, and this is one of the areas that currently is being considered in many applications of just blockchain in finance, no ESG. Let's imagine that we remove about the ESG, and alone, just on the speed of settlements, on having finality of transactions, that already is an advantage. I don't know if any of you know, but still in finance, settlements sometimes take 2 days after a transaction has been made. This is how bad some of these financial players, are still working. Well, it's the way, it's a complex system. It requires lots of checks. But yeah, we could be working if just we move into blockchains, we can have finality of transaction in seconds. That's on that front. But then, that there is the idea of smart contracts where, once something has happened, something else can be triggered automatically without a human having to click a button. And again, well, for me now, as you know, I'm very focused on ESG. For me, the key thing is about tracking the ESG credentials. And again, that's why I actually think that this type of technology is particularly important for ESG finance. Because for traditional finance, let's be honest, The main thing that you needed was, give me my money and can you pay me back? That's how it used to be. And you know, data flows, not much. It's just really about tracking these payments. But now that we move into ESG finance, you need to know way more than just the money part. You need to know about if the money really did what it was supposed to do, what we call the impact. And yeah, that in traditional finance, you didn't have it. You know, no one really cares if you got paid back your money. But now we do in ESG finance. And that part alone, in traditional banks, they say, oh, this is too much work to try to do this. I say, well, obviously, if you try to do it manually and you try to collect all this data manually, of course, it's too much work. But this is where technology can come. And, you know, IoT directly connected with blockchain and so on. They can do all of these things automated, and not just this, but also many of the other things that they were doing manually. If you ask me, you know, I for example worked with HSBC digital transformation program for almost 3 years, and you know, I don't want to. The team I worked there was amazing and so on. But one of the things I discovered by engaging more and more of these finance experts and the current financial sector. Let's put this question to you. If you were the head of fixed income and you are currently making 6 million, 6%, issuing 100 million, and I give you the opportunity to reduce that, obviously you will not be interested. You are cutting your revenue. So which big bank currently issuing millions and millions in bonds wants to reduce their current revenue? None, and this is some of the problems that I noticed why I'm doing this kind of outside big banks, because just in politics, things get blocked. And but the benefits are obviously not through the benefits will be for end users who actually get and use the finance. You know, remember at the end of the day, banks are just intermediaries. There is people who has money, there is people who needs money, and in between you have all of these financial players. And all of this, what it's doing is reducing and automating a lot of them. So which of them are really interested in this? Well, let's be honest on that. As I say, you will need to cut probably half of your team if you want to do this and really get the benefits. So that is why, you know, you will not get, you know, traditional financial institutions, jumping on this straight away. My view is that they will be pushed by startups, which are way more linear, way more optimal, and that they will demonstrate this type of savings. And then the big guys will be pushed to do it because everybody else is doing it, just like it has happened in many other areas in finance. Great.
Yeah, thank you. So you explained some of the you know, obstacles and resistance, so why we're not seeing more traction. But there's a slightly different question here, I think more from an EU, who's supposed to, you know, the EU is supposed to look beyond business and economics to, you know, environmental impact as well. And the question is, yeah, what is needed for institutions like the EU to, I guess, push, you know, these initiatives given the efficiencies and yeah, cost advantages?
Well, I think, you know, the EU is pushing into lots of these things. The EU, by the way, they are working on their own green bond standards. They also are working on a wide range of regulations, you know, related to the EU taxonomy. For example, if we're talking about financial players, you have the SFDR, which already kicked off last year, and this year is phase 2 coming. And you have NFRD, which will become CSRD. I know this is lots of acronyms, but we can take it all because it's later on. So the EU is working on a lot of these things now. And also even in blockchain, by the way, they are planning to issue regulations related to crypto assets by 2024, which is the MiCA regulation currently launched. The problem that I mentioned it before is that the left hand doesn't talk with the right hand because they are busy. So the people doing ESG finance is one group, one team, and they are really, really busy now. And well, I've actually know a few of them, they are really, really busy. These regulations are been coming out this year, it started last year, and for the next 3 years, we're going to expect more regulations, only on ESG finance. And blockchain or crypto is a whole world on its own, totally different team, totally different regulations. And then you need to bring them together. So I am imagining some of these things coming around after 2024, 2025, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, thank
it's
you.
not that they are not working, they're working, but each of these things is big on their own.
Yeah. Paul Epping, you had your hand up. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Well, 2045, that is far away. I mean, the world is changing so fast that probably we can start all over again. But thank you. Sorry that I was a little bit late. I was moderating another group, big company that we are transforming. So one thing in the end, Pedro, that triggered me is that you said it several times. We are too early, and that's a bad position to be at, because then people easily respond to you, well, I'm too busy or whatever. They don't see the immediate benefits of what you are doing. And the second thing that you said, well, the only thing to mitigate that is by experimenting, which I completely agree. And my question came up, what if we could develop a set of hypotheses that you want to test or that have to be tested to give people more insight in the complexity of the problem? Now it is too big. We have to start. It's a big elephant. And by having these hypotheses that you would like to test, that is experimentation, by the way, then people all of a sudden start to probably to grasp what you are trying to do.
Well,
is that possible? Or no, not that I can do that. I mean, you have to do that with a team. I just jumped in. I only saw the last two slides, but I think there is something, I feel that there is something in these kind of complex things that the key is in doing that kind of an exercise.
Well, Paul, I 100% agree. And I mean, well, you didn't see my first slide. I've been moving into ESG finance, green finance for the past 4 years. And I kind of arrived to this area now, which is kind of narrow. You know, I narrowed down the type of financial products. So I'm not looking into equities, into many other things, you know, just focus on fixed income. Very focused as well into even now the specific type of early stage, which is going to be more peer-to-peer type of, instead of bonds that could involve so many stuff and, you know, heavily regulated. And even the sector, the economic sector as well, I narrowed down to be only looking at the first stage on buildings, how to green, how to retrofit buildings. So yeah, I 100% agree. I'm doing it. Obviously, it's a bit slow. It's not as fast as we would like to, but yeah, I think that is the approach. And on the plus side, I think I have to mention, you know, that this year, kind of late last year, this year, the you know, organization like the Financial Conduct Authority, you know, FCA in the UK, they launched their first sandbox environment focused on ESG and technology. I'm involved in that. You know, I'm actually one of the mentors. I've been engaging few organizations there, and yeah, it is great to see the FCA moving into it, because that's kind of what we need. There are obviously organizations like MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. You know, they are kind of the regulator in Singapore, but you know, they're kind of many things at the same time. You know, they are the central bank, the regulator, and everything. And they are amazing in some of the things that they have been doing. In fact, I am well aware that Singapore already started to give license to asset tokenization, for example, being regulated. But most regulators and most jurisdictions around the world are no way at the stage of Singapore.
No, I know.
But yeah, I 100% agree. Many of these governments are working on these sandboxes. And yeah, it's about kind of starting very simple, narrow, and then growing from there.
Yeah, the only caveat here is time is against us. So we have to move a little bit faster, and
100% agree.
great initiative, and what I see and appreciate it. Yeah, that was it, Adrian.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, thanks for mentioning MES in Singapore. I grew up there, so take some pride there. My question is really relating to geography. The work that you're doing, is it Europe centric or is it global?
We very well, organizations like BCI, the Blockchain and Climate Institute, it is headquartered in the UK, but its remit is global. In fact, we are working on projects in Indonesia and so on. So that give you an idea. And similar ISO as well. Well, it's the International Standards Organization, so that you have an idea how international it is. So no, everything I'm doing, when it gets implemented, it has to be narrow. Unfortunately, because that's, as we discussed the previous point, that Paul made, we need to start small. So it has to be one jurisdiction, but the application and of that is global. The moment, for example, all the work that I've been doing has been in the UK, particularly because the UK has plenty of open data. For example, as part of that, of this project that, as part of this competition, I was actually, providing results for the climate risk for the entire UK real estate sector. It's around 20 million properties. Was getting data, analyzing it, and producing risk for every single property that we had coverage. Unfortunately, most countries don't have that data open. So I need to work with what I have. When we start going implementing, sometimes, we need to pick a specific area, specific sector, specific location, et cetera, et cetera. But later, hopefully, this will show that it is possible and other countries will join in. And well, I'm looking forward, especially with this peer-to-peer lending platform, that we could actually work on something in Africa. I've been working with other NGOs, that are operating in Africa. This year, the COP is in Egypt. So there is a lot of potential incentives to really get something implemented in Africa. But yes, it's, we need to get narrow, and it's sometimes when it comes to applied, it has to be very specific, but then it can really spread quickly.
Yeah, great. There are a few comments in the chat relating to banks, and sort of financial intermediaries being a bottleneck, as you pointed out. And I guess peer-to-peer sources of funding is one way to get around that bottleneck. Apart from peer-to-peer or P2P, are there other potential sources of funding that would be more open to this, more direct access to funding? I'm
sure there is, and the main reason why we kind of narrow down, although it's not necessarily narrow down when you see what we're building in terms of the specification, the technology, we are making it such general as well that one of the parties in the peer-to-peer can be taken by a traditional bank, for example. So there are obviously some details and necessity about each of these different type of financial products, but also there are many commonalities that we're trying to leverage whenever we can. But no, we mainly peer-to-peer because I know that it's not always very well regulated or seen everywhere, but that's why we're actually putting a lot of checks on both the ESG credentials, the green credentials, and the governance as well of it, that really risk is properly assessed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully, that will later could be taken by or change and modify in many different ways. Because, for example, one area that I've seen many ideas thrown out when I go to these blockchain conferences and ESG is that we could all, for example, be investing or pension funds in things that actually are linked to our local community, so that we see the benefits, and you, for example, end up owning part of your local solar panel or wind farm, for example. These type of things, it will be possible, once we start cracking on, but at the moment it's theoretical in most cases, but it's all about starting this small, as we described, and later you can have this type of really social type development where literally all these local communities around the world get actually that incentive locally, and there is that transparency and there is that support. And I'm sure, if you're actually investing yourself into your own local solar field, you will be taking care of it, making sure there is no vandalism. So yeah, there is lots of potential for inclusion and ESG and many of the other SDGs once we start getting some of these things running.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. I'm just conscious of time, Pedro, and a really amazing presentation. And you can tell from the comments and questions that people are very interested to, follow your journey or even volunteer and get in touch and maybe start a little sandbox project in their geography. I'm based in Indonesia now, and I would be happy to chat with you further about maybe doing something out here. There's your LinkedIn profile is I've just pasted that into the chat group here. Can people contact you on LinkedIn and find out more about being a volunteer, helping out, etc.?
Yeah, please reach out there. Sometimes I have a long list of replies, but I will definitely get there, and yeah, look forward to keep growing the network. I think yeah, it's all of this kind of movement, and well, the whole idea of one of the ideas of this blockchain is that decentralization, that empowerment of everyone. We don't need to wait sometimes, for a central authority to say things or decide things. We can all just jump in. And that's what, a lot of people, is very excited about this type of technologies. And yes, we should embrace that as well in all the way we work.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I think that's a really good point about, we're not just talking about decentralizing technology, but also decentralizing ownership of the problem and solutions.
100% agree. I think actually that's a very good final comment. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have time for one more question from Ishak?
Yeah, one more, and then we're out. Yes.
Yep.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Pedro. It's not really a question, really. It's more of a comment, because you talked about the peer-to-peer based financing, which is quite interesting, because I'm working on a project very similar to that in sub-Saharan Africa as well. So it will be nice to connect, maybe send you a note on LinkedIn and see if we can do something together. It's quite interesting you mentioned that, and I have a partner who is unfortunately not on the call at the moment, but yeah, we're looking to do something very similar to that actually.
Sounds perfect. Yeah, I mean, definitely get in touch and let's see how how we can get something running. I mean, it would be great really to demonstrate these technologies, in areas where actually they are really needed. There are lots of things we can try to help bring to finance, for example, solar panels combined with batteries to so many homes. So yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation as well. Appreciate it.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Pedro, for your time and insights. And yeah, I think it's really inspirational, and I think you have a lot of supporters, and some will reach out to you to get more involved. So, and thank you everyone else for joining and asking very, very good questions and lending your support behind this very important initiative. So there's nothing else. I will end the session, and hope to see you in the future one. All right.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye-bye.